What is up, YouTube? My name is Trinity and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. So today we are going to be continuing on a video that I actually made about a year ago talking about my favorite creepypastas. As you know, a big theme that we cover on this channel is internet horror, so I wanted to continue on that. We have already talked about kind of the poster child for creepypastas, Slender Man, but I wanted to talk to you guys about more of the most iconic creepypastas out there because I'll be honest, I haven't done a deep dive into them before. I didn't know about a lot of the popular ones that everybody else knows about. I didn't know all the stories. So this is really fun to research and I want to share what I found with you. So the first creature that we are going to be talking about today is Jeff the Killer. Really, the most I knew about Jeff the Killer was hearing kids at middle school kind of talk about the story, but I was never really interested in diving into it. Back then, I wasn't as much of a horror enthusiast as I am now. And I'll be honest, a lot of the people that tended to talk about it had weird crushes on the character, which, being a serial killer, was a little weird. I know it's a thing now. It's still fucking weird, and I just hope that those people grew out of it rather than becoming the adults that are weirdly obsessed with actual serial killers. So Jeff the Killer, who started his story as Jeffrey Woods, was introduced to the internet in 2011 in a story by the same name. It all began when he, his brother Lou, and his parents moved to a new neighborhood, which meant that the brothers would have to begin attending a new school. On their first day, Lou and Jeffrey were targeted by 3 bullies, with the encounter with them escalating to the bullies pulling knives on them. In order to protect himself and his brother, he beat up one of the bullies. I don't know how he did it without the other 2 jumping in, but he beat this kid so bad that the police had to be called. And in order to save his brother from the consequences of what he had done, Lou took the fall for the beating and went to jail, which Jeffrey, of course, felt so guilty and distraught by, and he fell into a deep depression. Though eventually Lou was released, and I assume that improved Jeffrey's mental health enough that he eventually went to a party. But at this party, he was targeted by the same bullies again. In his struggle to fight back, he ended up killing one of them, but not before the bullies doused him in bleach and set him on fire. Eventually, Jeffrey woke up in his hospital bed, but his face was completely wrapped in bandages, so he couldn't see what had been done to him. Eventually, a doctor decided that he was healed enough that the bandages could be taken off, and when Jeffrey saw his face, it was completely disfigured. His skin was pale and leathery to the touch from the burn scars, and his lips were bright red now. Though unexpectedly, Jeffrey began to laugh uncontrollably, saying how much he loved the way he looked, which instead of the doctor thinking, wow, this kid has gone through a lot of fucking trauma, maybe we should, get some psychological help for him, some therapy, he just chalked it up to the pain medication that the boy was on, making him loopy. He was able to be released from the hospital on the same day that the bandages were taken off, but later that night, his mother walked in on a horrifying scene. Jeffrey had further mutilated his face. He had burned off his eyelids and was in the process of using a knife to carve a permanent smile into his face. And when his mother asked him, why would you do this? He said so he could always see his face and so he didn't have to put effort into smiling anymore. Just like the doctor, instead of thinking, wow, I need to get my 13-year-old child help, she went to her husband and told him, Jeffrey's gone completely mad, we need to kill him. But Jeffrey kind of beat her to the punch, and I assume he overheard this conversation and stabbed them both to death. And then poor Lou, who was not a part of any of this, woke up from the commotion and walked in on Jeffrey, finishing off their parents, and then Jeffrey, who I guess now is becoming Jeff the Killer, turned on him, whispering, go to sleep, before stabbing Lou to death. And as the story goes from there, Jeffrey, or now Jeff the Killer, disappeared into the night and continued his killing spree, primarily targeting those who just refused to go to sleep, which I feel like is such a weird ending to the story. It sounds like, one of those folk tales that people tell their kids, like, oh, if you don't go to sleep, this monster is gonna come get you. A very strange way to end it. Now, that is the original story. There is a rewrite that somebody did in 2015. There are non-canon continuations. Some say that Jeff the Killer is a proxy of Slender Man, and others say, like, no, they're mortal enemies for some reason. And there's also continuations where Lou survived and he developed DID, and he is also a murderer, and there's a lot in the whole Jeff the Killer universe. If you want me to go over it in a dedicated video in the future, let me know down below. But until then, that is Jeff the Killer. The next creepypasta we are going to be talking about is The Rake, which is everything that I love / hate in a monster wrapped up all into one. The disproportionate, long, lanky body, the pale skin, the humanoid crawling form and everything, just perfect monster to scare me, nothing I actually want to see. Very heavily reminding me of the Wendigos from Until Dawn and The Descent. Now, most sightings of this creature occur in isolated, wooded areas, something you would run into in the woods when you're out camping alone, though some witnesses apparently have seen it appear in their houses before. Now, something cool about a lot of creepypastas that I didn't realize is a lot of them kind of existed in some form way before I ever knew about them. Usually the 2010s are when I really started to hear more about creepypastas and they became a little more mainstream. However, The Rake originated on 4chan in 2005, so when I was 3 years old. The Rake, or the prototype for what would eventually become the Rake that we all know today, when an anonymous user put out a call for people to create original monsters. And one of the most popular submissions for this contest of sorts was something that would eventually become The Rake. So the user made his own dedicated post. Quote, "All right, this is for the people who like the 3 eyes, no apparent mouth, pale skin one. Here's what we've got so far. Humanoid, about 6 feet tall when standing, but usually crouches and walks on all fours. It has very pale skin. The face is blank, as in no nose and no mouth. However, it has 3 solid green eyes, one on the middle of its forehead and the other 2 on either sides of its head towards the back, usually seen in front yards in suburban areas. Usually just watches the observer, but will stand up and attack if approached. When it attacks, a mouth opens up, as if a hinged skull that opens at the chin, reveals many tiny but dull teeth." So obviously this isn't exactly the creature that we associate with the Rake today. However, you can see the picture coming together. But over time, the internet collaborated, people contributed more ideas, and further built upon this idea. Quote, "Approximately 6 feet tall, but seen crouching, humanoid with pale grayish skin. 2 slightly larger than human eyes, no nose, a mouth that is smaller than a human, but when provoked or attacked, opens freely on a hinge down the neckline, showing hundreds of dull but not blunt teeth. Unknown origin, unknown diet, seen in suburban areas, opens its mouth and widens its eyes when provoked, attacks when approached. If not provoked or approached, it just stares." The first and most well-known story about the Rake was uploaded by Brian Somerville, a user on the Something Awful forum, something we have heard about many times before when talking about creepypastas, on his personal blog in a series called Horror Theater. According to Horror Theater, encounters with the Rake had been happening since the early 12th century. However, the first documentation of the creature was in 1691. It also states that in the summer of 2003, there were strings of very bizarre events that occurred along the northeastern coast of the United States. And all of these events involved the Rake. However, all documentation of it was either mysteriously lost or destroyed somehow. I know that's very vague, but I wanted to, keep this video a reasonable length so I could get it out to you in a timely manner. However, I've been kind of wanting to do a deep dive on the Rake and maybe talk about its inspiration, since it obviously pulls from Wendigos, another creature that I don't really want to say the name of, and obviously it was built by the internet. So if you guys are interested in that, please let me know. Now, the most famous image of the Rake that we all know was actually captured on November 30th of 2010. And when it hit the internet, it fucking blew up to the point where local news stations were even covering it, saying that this creature was captured on a trail cam and they were trying to puzzle out the identity of the creature.
Thanks for watching NBC 33 News Morning Edition. The time is 6:26. Okay, so you know how we ask you to send in your pics so we can put them in our newscast? Well, you got to see what one viewer claims his friend found at a hunting camp in Berwick. I really don't even know what that is. The guy who sent it in didn't want us to mention his name, but tells us this is totally for real. He says last weekend his friend's family found one of their hunting cams destroyed, but the SIM card was still there, and so was this crazy image.
Though the origin of the photo was actually from a video game called Resistance 3, and it depicted a monster in the game called a Grim that heavily resembles what the rake is. And the final creepypasta that we are going to be talking about today is Siren Head, one that is a lot newer than the other two. It was created in 2018 by a Toronto-based artist named Trevor Henderson, and it really blew up in 2020. The creature is said to be over 40 feet tall. It has a very emaciated, elongated, humanoid, skeletal body covered in either rotting or mummified flesh. Though despite the organic appearance of its body, its head is made up of two seemingly metal sirens facing opposite directions, or at least appendages that look very inorganic. Attached to these sirens are long black cords that wind around its neck and enter the flesh of its shoulders and weave through its abdomen and everything. It's really cool and creepy and unsettling to look at. Trevor posted another drawing that apparently showed further anatomy of the creature, saying he liked the idea of the abdomen being full of cassette tapes and a recording device. Now, apparently the first in-universe sighting of this creature happened in 1966 when a vacationing family took a photo of it in the Arizona desert. Another well-known story about Siren Head is in July of 1995. A man named Chad and his friends were hiking through Tanyard Creek when something gigantic, moving nearly unseen through the woods around them, started picking off his friends. And he was the only one found alive with only minor injuries. But he said as they were being picked off, he heard something mimicking their voices. And it was assumed that they were killed or just taken wherever by Siren Head. And despite there being modern sightings of the creature, Trevor also released pictures of cave drawings implying that Siren Head has been around for at least 40,000 years hunting people. Siren Head is generally spotted in rural, isolated towns, and it blends in very well among trees. Most of its victims tend to be hikers or travelers that have become lost, or children, the most likely to wander into the woods or become lost, not really know how to get to safety. And I know I've brought it up a couple of times, but it has a hunting method very akin to Wendigos. It mimics the sound of distressed humans to draw in people that want to help and then uses that to kill them. It's also apparently capable of manipulating modern technology and emitting messages through other devices. Now that is the end of this video. However, if you want me to keep going over different creepypastas, I had a lot of fun researching and I really wouldn't mind doing more of them just to learn more about it, maybe take a deep dive into the Something Awful forum if it's still up. And just, learning more about internet horror, because like I told you, it is such a fascinating topic to me because it's all about collaboration. People just keep adding on to stories and they make an entire universe essentially around one person's idea, and I think that is so cool. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the like button and hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and click the notification bell if you haven't already done so. That way you'll be notified anytime I upload, which I hopefully intend to do more often. We're coming up on 500 subscribers, so I want to do something special. I'm thinking of maybe doing the cryptid drinking game, maybe as a live stream, maybe as just a long video, I don't know. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you have any friends or family that are also interested in creepypastas, think about sharing this video with them because we are always trying to grow this community. I want to fill this community with like-minded spooky individuals just like us. And finally, if you enjoyed this video or you have any questions or you have requests for creepypastas that I should cover in the future or just requests in general, please leave them down below. I always appreciate them. I hope you all have a great day and I will see you in the next one. Bye.